this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
You're listening to a podcast, so you're doing something else too, like maybe scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving places you like without thinking you'll get them, because that's what house hunting has become. But Redfin isn't built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents, which means when you find a place you love, you've got a real shot at getting it. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
This is Julian Edelman from Games with Names. As a fellow dude, do you ever get that not so fresh feeling in your butt? That's because you're probably using the dry stuff to wipe. Wet, extra large, flushable dude wipes get what toilet paper leaves behind in your behind. You wouldn't clean the tail end of your truck with dry paper towels. So why would you wipe with dry toilet paper? Wetter just cleans better. There are no more dingleberries, no more itch and irritation, just a deep, down the seam, confident clean. So don't fumble the ball with toilet paper. Stop being an a-hole to your b-hole. Drop the toilet paper. Available on Amazon and major retailers nationwide. Dude Wipes, best clean, pants down.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Jake, are you a morning person? How do you handle waking up, starting the day? Good or bad?
I really think it's like real important to get up early, but I hate it all the time. It's a real battle for me, to be honest with you.
I'm exactly the opposite. I hate getting up. Like 12:45 is kind of a normal time for me to wake up. Left to my own devices. I love that shit. Then I just get to stay up until 4. I don't know why it makes me
depressed if I get up late. I don't know why.
Well, I am always depressed, so there may be something to that.
It don't matter which time.
I can't even tell you the amount of times people like ask me something to ask Robert. I'm like, he will not be awake for at least 4 hours. No. I don't know what you want from me. Like, you will not be.
You worked late, right?
I did. I woke up at 8 a.m. this morning, that we're recording this. And then I was like, why would I do this? Horrible. And then I went to sleep until right before this recording started and woke up feeling like shit.
That sounds like just your life choices.
Yeah, it sure was. Sophie, why did you make me get up this early? Huh?
Because Jake doesn't live in our time zone. And it seems fucking rude to make somebody record a podcast in the middle of the night.
Yeah, we're talking about conspiracy theorists today. Seems like kind of a conspiracy to suggest that the time might be different just because you're in another country, Sophie.
You're so annoying.
I know.
We should stick to, you guys should follow real time, British time.
Yeah, isn't it Greenwich Mean Time? Is that what you guys use, right?
We just call it real time.
Just real time? Just actual people time?
As opposed to fake American time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, our time zones are fucking nonsense, It's like, I don't know, using inches? But wait, do you guys use inches? I always forget how it works.
Do you know what? We use everything. It's weird.
You guys use all of them, right?
Yeah, depending on what you're talking about, yeah.
Like people give America shit because we picked the one thing that no one else basically uses, but you guys picked both of them, which is kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Love it.
We're a stupid place, really.
Everyone is. This is Behind the Bastards, a podcast about the stupid place that is the world and the terrible people who make it worse, I guess. Jake, You ready to get back to talking about Julius Streicher?
Favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, as we left off, he's kind of one of the guys alongside Hitler that a lot of people in the German right are like, maybe this guy's our messiah, maybe he's the dude who's going to bring us back to greatness and then convince us to invade Russia in an inopportune time and get several million of our young men killed again. Whatever. That's what people are saying about Streicher and about Hitler. And Streicher's part of this kind of like anti-Semitic, UN organization, whereas Hitler's part of the German Workers' Party, which is in the process of merging with the German Socialist Party to form the National Socialist German Workers' Party, aka the Nazis. So, when Streicher joins this organization run by his buddy Dickel, he takes the newspaper that he had started using the funding from the German Socialist Party, and he brings it with him because he's the guy who owns it. He changes its name to Deutscher Volkswille, which I think just means German People's Will. And he kind of ups the violence in his rhetoric, particularly the anti-Semitic violence, by a couple of jots when he does this. Not only does he start devoting more time to laying out conspiracy theories, but he starts accusing Jewish citizens in Germany, often by name, of specific criminal acts, generally in Nuremberg. So he's not just doing the sort of general, it's the Jews that caused us to lose World War I, yada, yada. He's saying, like, there is a specific Jewish person or a specific group of Jewish people who carried out this specific crime in Nuremberg, right? Often these crimes are completely made up. He's basically always making up like who was the culprit behind them. A lot of it is like accusing rabbis of ritually murdering Christian children and stuff. It doesn't matter that like kids aren't going missing, or sometimes like a kid will die just the way, it's fucking 1921, kids trip and fall and cut their arms and get infections and shit. Exactly, right? Like, yeah. So anytime something like that happens, find a way to blame it on the Jews, put this shit out. Now, it's not legal to just like accuse random people of child abduction and murder, right? Like you can get in trouble for that even back then. And he goes so far in this stuff. The Bavarian courts are pretty right wing. They're not like naturally inclined to prosecute a guy like Streicher, but he goes so far in like accusing random Jewish people of crimes that he gets charged and convicted of slander. Getting convicted of slander as a right-wing politico in 1921 Bavaria, pretty hard. But Julius does it. Yeah. This tiny amount of pressure from the government, though, winds up really helping him. Like the fact that he's been convicted and charged, because now he's able to play the victim, right? Not only is he's like, I'm being persecuted. They're trying to stop me from talking to you. And so this helps to bring in more followers, bring more subscribers to his newsletter, bring more members to the organization that Dickel founded, that he's kind of the figure for, and Streicher gets more famous. On April 4th, 1922, several thousand Nurembergians, whatever, show up to... Burgers is good. Several thousand now I'm hungry. Several thousand burgers show up to listen to Streicher give a speech in which he explains that in August of 1914, he had gone to war believing himself a soldier of Germany, only to find out that he was a pawn in this grand Jewish game for global control, and also the French are involved. And a huge amount of his rhetoric is focused upon kind of taking advantage of and stoking the anxieties of young German men in this time, who they've just lost a war. Like, young men don't like losing wars, and they're kind of emasculated, right, by defeat and this sense of inferiority that it brings. And that's a big part of what Streicher is going to take advantage of. I'm going to read you a quote that he gave in this speech here. "Stand in front of a hotel and see who takes the arms of the German girl, not the German worker. We know they sometimes give themselves to the Orientals. When a Negro or a black soldier on the Rhine misuses a German girl, she is lost to the race." And when he's bringing up like black soldiers going out with German girls, what he's talking about is that the Rhine, which is kind of, or the Ruhr actually, I think it is which is the industrial, it's all along the Rhine though, which is the industrial like heartland of Germany. It's where they'd done a lot of their arms production for World War I. That's occupied under the Treaty of Versailles by French troops for a significant chunk of the Weimar period. And the French often send over like colonial soldiers, including like African soldiers,
Algerians and that.
Exactly. Everywhere you have soldiers stationed in a foreign country, this shit will happen. Some number of them will do bad things. And whenever something like that happens with these French occupation troops, it is this huge deal on the right, because there's this race panic issued towards it too. They're angry just period at the fact that they lost the war. So that's what Streicher is kind of, he's not only sort of like, look, they've got these like black soldiers on our soil, but more broadly speaking, he's like, German women are being taken from German men because we've been emasculated by defeat. And this is part of a Jewish plot to like water down our blood. Right? That's the thing that Streicher's doing. Yeah,
he's
like
really
that's how it's going.
reaching with that one.
Well, yes, of course. Yeah. That do be the Nazis.
Yeah.
So his time with the German working group was short. One of his rallies was broken up by a giant street fight with communists, which Dickel's organization apparently considered his fault. He left in the subsequent disagreement, unable as ever to handle anyone criticizing him. And this leaves Julius in a bit of a pickle. He needs an organization, right? He's not anything without sort of like, he's got like a degree of celebrity, but like he wants to be a part of a party, right? He wants to be working towards taking power. And his paper at this point is still too small to be profitable on its own without kind of the guaranteed regular sales that came with being the paper of a political organization. And he's sort of like fishing around, who's going to take me, who wants Julius, who's willing to have me be on their side. And the only party in Germany who's kind of radical enough to take someone like him, who's got the reputation he has, is the new Nazi party. Now, they're still in the process of doing this merger at the time, and the guys who had been sort of running the Democratic Socialist Party and had worked with Streicher earlier don't want him in the Nazi party. And the dudes who had sort of been fighting with Hitler within the German Workers' Party also don't necessarily want Streicher. And so when he starts reaching out to Hitler, because like Hitler's the guy he like basically sends a letter to being like, hey, I think I'd be willing to like work with you guys. They send Hitler a letter filled with like dirt on Julius, trying to basically like convince Hitler not to work with him, be like, here's all this shit about like Julius Streicher, all this bad stuff, about like why this guy's not trustworthy. But then this is really interesting. Streicher doesn't get along with most people who are in charge of him. And Hitler, not a great guy at sharing the stage. But for whatever reason, the two of them kind of get along. And when Hitler gets this letter filled with dirt on Streicher, he's like, I think this is bullshit. I think I like this guy and I want to work with him. And we don't really know why. But in addition to Hitler kind of liking Streicher and wanting to work with him, Streicher, this guy who cannot take direction, who doesn't like to listen to people, who has a conflict with everyone who puts themselves above him, kind of decides at this moment, you know what? I'm willing to like take a back seat and back Hitler as the Führer. Like maybe I could do that, but I'm willing to like back him. I'm willing to like give him, my full faith and support. We don't fully know why he makes this call. But in May of 1922, he publishes an article on his newspaper called The Longing of a Strong Hand. Echoing Sabattendorf's work, he begged German anti-Semites to unite behind a single leader who could give direction to the quarrelsome right wing. And he kind of ends with him like being like, I think Hitler's probably a guy to watch for this. One possibility here is that Streicher, at this point, he's been in politics a while. He's had a couple of big failures. He's tried to basically build two parties around him and failed 2 times. So he may have just, like, he's not a humble guy, but he may have actually just kind of recognized his limitations and been like, clearly I can't do this and Hitler can. So I'm going to support the guy who's doing it, The other possibility, which I think, both of these things are possible, is that he kind of just falls in love with Hitler. Like, this seems to be genuine from him. Like that he is like genuinely loyal and genuinely believes in Hitler as the fucking right-wing messiah type dude. We don't actually know when the two first met, probably at some point in 1922. Years later, when he's on trial at Nuremberg, Julius is going to like give his sort of like explanation of how they met. And this is a lie, obviously. We are talking about like a Nazi leader on trial for war crimes against humanity. He's not giving you the truth of whatever their meeting was. But I still think it's interesting what he's later going to claim is like how the two of them like meet. So he says, he shows up at the speech that Hitler's giving. He's kind of curious about this guy that's sort of been billed as, maybe his rival. And he's immediately taken in by Hitler's supernatural charisma. He's overwhelmed by the chanting of the crowd. And he like has almost this vision of Hitler as a messenger from heaven. That's how he described it. Quote, clothed with the beauty of inspired language. And Streicher claims that he's so overwhelmed with the raw, godly force of Hitler's charisma that he walks up to him right after the speech and swears fealty. Quote, never before had I heard that song sung so imploringly, so filled with faith and hope, and never before had the singing of Deutschland über alles moved me as deeply as it did in that mass meeting where I first saw Adolf Hitler and heard him speak. I felt it. In this moment, destiny calls to me a second time. I hurried through the jubilant masses to the podium, stood before him and said, I am Julius Streicher. At this moment, I know I can only be a follower, but you are a leader. I give you the popular movement which I have built in Franconia, which is the German state that Nuremberg's in. So
I was like, he was giving Hitler the dickle, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's giving he's definitely boot licking here. He's deep throating that boot. He's got it up to the heel.
How long were you holding that in?
Mm-hmm. I just been trying to work it out.
I know.
How can it get in there?
Yeah. Proud of you. Proud of you.
The cogs going in my head.
Yeah.
My 12-year-old
just churning along like a cement mixer.
Just waiting.
Yeah. Now, this is what I just related to you. Again, I think it's worth having because this is the claim that he makes. It's absolutely a lie. And Randall Beitwerk, who is Streicher's biographer, he kind of provides what I think is a much more realistic theory as to how these two guys get together, which is basically that Streicher, he's a man without a party, but he's got a shitload of followers who just like him because they like listening to him. He's got this paper and he sits down with Hitler and the Nazis and they have this negotiation, this kind of hard-nosed negotiation in which, he's like, hey, I need money from you guys to help me deal with the debts that I've accumulated. In exchange, I'll bring you these followers. I'll back Hitler. It is very much a rational political decision. While there's definitely Streicher will be loyal to Hitler. There is a degree of legitimate affection between the two men. This is also just a very practical call for him. It's a business decision as well as a political one. So yeah. Interesting stuff. Julius, for his part, seems to be one of the few men Hitler respected. It's notable. Every time you read anything about the two, you will see it noted that Streicher was one of a very small number of Nazis who were allowed to use the pronoun "du" to refer to Hitler. Du. I'm not a German speaker. I barely speak English, but "du" is an intimate pronoun. You only use it with somebody that you're close with, right?
Right, your actual friend.
Your actual friends, almost people you. Yeah, and obviously this is, I think on Hitler's part, letting Streicher do this is more of a. It's a kind of a political move, but it's also based on his respect for the man's loyalty because Hitler does not personally like Streicher. The two are not friends. They don't hang out together. Hitler will actually kind of avoid him when he's in power and big meetings and stuff. We'll try not to hang. But Hitler will also defend him against other Nazis who hate him because he has so much respect for Streicher's skill as a propagandist, right? Which is an interesting sort of relationship for them to have.
It just sounds like that guy where he's oh, fuck, it's him again.
Mm-hmm. It's him again, but also, man, that he's fucking good at what he does.
He's good, yeah. We need him around, but I don't want him around me.
Yeah, I don't want to have dinner with him, but I will back him to the hilt as long as he stays away. So Streicher never quarreled with Hitler, but he did get into regular conflict with other Nazis, and he has a particular early issue with the leader of the Nuremberg SA, the Nazi street fighting organization. They're Proud Boys, so to speak. Because he winds up taking control of the city's Nazi party. This struggle kind of goes on, and he winds up winning it. And in 1923, Julius is sort of running the Nazi party branch in Nuremberg. And as a result of taking over, he decides to launch a new newspaper. And this is a publication that he's going to use for the specific goal of not just bringing people to the Nazi party, but to inspire regular Germans to embrace his war on Judaism. He names it Der Stürmer. Now, that means the stormer, right? In terms of a stormtrooper, right? That's how that term is used. He's very much calling up sort of people's memories of World War I. He's very much sort of making, a point of the fact that that's what he did in the war. He will later claim that his inspiration was that he wanted to use this paper to storm the Red Fortress of left-wing politics in Germany. And initially, in Der Stürmer, articles are kind of split between three major topics. One of the major topics is him just going on rants against people who made fun of him. The other is attacking the Jews. And the last is going after the mayor of Nuremberg, Hermann Lupe. Like, half of his early articles are just attacking the mayor. He fucking hates this guy.
Is that the guy that did him for talking bad?
Yeah, he had a major role in that. That's a big part of, I think, where it starts. And Lupe, to his credit, he's not a left-wing radical. I'm not saying that's to his credit, but just to describe him, he's not a left-wing radical. He's kind of politically, he's like a bridge between moderate centrist liberals and democratic socialists who are sort of like the moderate leftists of their day. You know, and obviously the kind of centrist libs don't get along with the democratic socialists, don't get along with the communists. Lupa's not, really in with the communists, but he is a bridge between like the centrists and the democratic socialists. And he is profoundly anti-Nazi. And he does the best that he knows to try to go after Streicher. Obviously, it doesn't work. And you feel for the guy. He gets persecuted under the Nazis. He winds up dying. This is a real bummer. He makes it through most of the war as like a persecuted political enemy of the Nazis, and then dies in an air raid in 1945, which is a fucking bummer. But he tried. Streicher spends most of his first 4 issues attacking the mayor, with publishing alongside ancillary articles accusing local Jewish people or organizations of crimes. And it was this latter brand of content, these articles sort of making explicit allegations against Jewish citizens, that's going to lead to Streicher's first period of time in jail. And I'm going to quote from Calvin University's German propaganda archive here. At one of these meetings, held in 1922, in the town of Schöningen in Franconia, Streicher pointed out that 16 newspapers had recently reported on the disappearance of over 100 German children before the Jewish Passover season of 1919. Since none of the boys was ever located, Streicher concluded that they must have become victims of Jewish ritual murder. He explained that his reasoning was based on teachings contained in the Talmud, which allegedly instructed Jews to kill Christians, especially children, and drink their blood during the Jewish Easter season. Streicher was sued on the ground of defaming the Jewish religion and sentenced to 14 days in prison. He appealed, and the sentence was reduced to a fine of 2,000 marks plus court costs. And first off, it's interesting, you and I before this call were kind of talking about our episodes, a week or so ago on BTB about this kidnapping panic that's going everywhere. You see the same thing is going on in Weimar Germany, right? This, in America, the statistic you'll hear quoted is like 500,000 children go missing every year in the United States, which is a lie. That would be 1 out of 7 children born every year in the United States gets abducted.
Right.
What it is that, there's like 400,000 or 500,000 every year. Reports.
It's a hell of a lot, though.
Well, it's reports of kids going missing, which is generally not a kid actually going missing. It's either you have a custody dispute between, 2 people and one of them takes the kid, and it's, there's a report filed against the police as part of that ongoing thing, or like, a lot of it's mistakes and stuff. There's not 500,000 children who just disappear, right? Like that would be like, that would be a calamity, Yeah.
I think the thing is though, it's one of them ones where, as dark as it is, it's smart to use something like that because one child going missing is a total tragedy. Yeah. And to play on people, kids, everybody loves their kids, or they should do, and everyone loves kids. And it's like, it's so hits you right in the heart. You know Absolutely. What I'm saying? It's a tactic, as we can see, old as time.
Yeah. And who knows why these 100 kids go missing, right? Yeah. For one thing, 100 kids across Germany in 1922, that's not like an epidemic, but each of those cases, as you said, is like a dagger to the heart. Yeah. I'm sure there's a bunch of different reasons. Streicher is just using that statistic and then making the unfounded claim it's the Jews that are doing it. Whereas I'm sure it's a mix of, kids falling down wells, kids getting abducted by parents. There's probably some like creepy sex pests in there, but it's like in any society, like some number of kids, bad things will happen to. I'm not saying that to like write it off, but like if you can blame it on a specific group of people, you can make a lot of political hay. And so anyway, that's working well for him. And he learns from his time getting arrested for this, and like the fact that, again, getting fucked with by the court a little bit, getting this fine, It doesn't really disrupt his ability to organize. The party pays the fine, but it helps him build support. And he also, like, the fact that, this strikes such a nerve, the reason why he gets prosecuted for this is because it works. It gets a lot of people reading his paper because people are interested when you claim that there's some conspiracy against their children, right? Like, it's just a thing people inherently pay attention to. And whatever punishment the state's going to give you for lying about this stuff is a lot less of an issue than, like, the benefit you get from making this a center of your politics. So Der Stürmer becomes a runaway hit. And in fact, it's so successful that Max Amann, who's the leader of the Nazi Party's press wing, asks him to stop publishing it because it's taking business away from the Nazi Party paper. Now, Streicher's is going to ignore him, and it's going to wind up being good for the Nazis that he does ignore him. In these early days, Der Stürmer it's not as the full-size newspaper it's going to become. It's kind of like a pamphlet right now. It's usually about 4 pages long. And so, it's building a name for itself. And then in 1923, our boy Hitler has his Munich beer hall putsch, right? Tries to take over the government.
Can we not with our boy Hitler?
Okay, sure, Sophie. Friend of the pod, Adolf
Hitler.
Also,
no.
He does his putsch. It doesn't go well. A lot of people get shot, and Streicher's a part of that, right? He's one of what the Nazis are going to call the old fighters. So he's in the putsch. He doesn't get killed, but he does get arrested. He does a couple of months, in prison. So not that bad a sentence. Hitler's more like a year. And he gets out afterwards and he starts printing Der Stürmer. And the putsch, there's a couple of things that have happened here. For one, the Nazi Party has been temporarily banned. So suddenly this Nazi newspaper that, like, folks in the party had been frustrated because Der Stürmer was distracting attention from it can't publish anymore. But Der Stürmer is not a Nazi newspaper. It's Streicher's paper. So he can keep publishing it during this period in which the party is kind of technically banned. The other thing that's happened here is that the court case that Hitler goes through, right, when he's charged with doing this putsch, as we've talked about in our episode on the Munich beer hall putsch, becomes like a media circus in Germany, right? And Hitler uses it very effectively to spread propaganda. While he's on trial, he's giving these speeches about his beliefs and about what he sees as necessary for the nation. And it works incredibly well. Like, he makes a lot of political hay out of this. And in the wake of it, number one, Hitler's become a celebrity across the country as opposed to this kind of regional figure. And number two, a lot of Germans are now curious about Nazi beliefs and about anti-Semitic politics. And Streicher's paper, which is still publishing, kind of becomes the de facto paper for Nazi sympathetic people during this period in which the party is technically banned. By 1925, it's increased its circulation to the size of a normal newspaper with full-page advertisements and enough circulation to actually, like, make money. So Streicher is now making a profit. And in fact, in the near future, he's going to get rich off of the success of this newspaper. So he continues while this thing starts blowing up to push the boundaries of what is considered at the time to be sort of acceptable anti-Semitic discourse. Most mainstream racists in Germany stuck to vague insinuations that the Jews are in bed with the French or the socialists or the French socialists and are responsible for them losing the war, yada, yada. But you're also starting to get more and more writing in mainstream German press about Nazi racial theory, right? A lot of these high-minded articles about ancient Aryans start coming out now. This stuff had existed before World War I. As we've talked about, there's all these weird little right-wing secret societies and Volkish secret societies and stuff. But now this starts to get out into the mainstream. And Streicher understood that when it came to getting people on board with this kind of propaganda, one thing worked on getting the attention of regular people better than anything else, and that was blood, right? The best way to get people to pay attention to your racism was to titillate them with gory stories of violence. And speaking of profiting off of titillating people with gory stories of violence, you know what time it is now, Jake?
Is it adverts?
It's ads. Yeah, that's right. We are back. So I was just telling you, Jake, again, we're talking about, like, how modern this guy is. Part of what Streicher does to, like, build a career for himself is he kind of gets into true crime, right? Like that's sort of like the thing that that's the kind of content that's going to like help make Der Stürmer a big deal.
Well, that changes everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of, it doesn't sound so bad now.
Doesn't sound so bad now. I'm scared of serial killers. Sure. These aren't actual true crimes, but that's how he like frames what he's doing. The first reference to ritual murder in Der Stürmer is in 1924, and reader responses start to roll in, convincing Julius that this is a fecund spring of audience interest. By 1926, he'd built to focusing an entire issue of Der Stürmer on ritual murder, framing it as an investigation into the supposed ritual killing by Jews in Breslau. Quote, "In Breslau, 2 children, Otto and Erika Fessy, secretly vanished. They were murdered. The corpse pieces were found the same day in a tied package in a public place. The search for the murderer began. The cloth and corpse pieces which were packaged became an open showcase in a public window, which drew masses of people to come in view." According to the author of the article, the body parts had been bled before they were packaged. This and history were enough to proclaim it a Jewish ritual murder. Here's Streicher again. Doesn't the fact that the body parts were found totally bled point to such a Jewish butcher's procedure? Such was the report of 2 of the Silesian newspapers that announced that this Breslau child murder sounds as though it is possibly a Jewish ritual murder. The Breslau child murder reminds us of the Konitz boy murder that was discovered a few decades ago, when for no apparent reason a boy disappeared from school. The traces led to a house of Jewish butchers. The bled pieces of remains of the boy were also found in a public place. This unsolved mystery has been brought to the attention of the criminal police. The crime was never solved. Now with the disappearance of these children in much the same way.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine washable sofa, inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit washablesofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
Should this case also be lost in the sand? And again, you see what he's doing is he's like, this case, which we have to assume is done by the Jews because we know this is the kind of thing they do, is the same as this other case decades ago where we know that a boy was murdered by Jewish people. And of course, it was never solved, but like we know who it was. There's not ever any evidence here, right? But like,
right. Connecting dots that aren't there.
But you can give the details, since you don't have evidence to actually connect this, what you do is you give the details of the murder, right? And that gets people at such an agitated state that you say, and then obviously, this was done by this group of people, and it works very well. When blood and violence weren't enough, Streicher turned to sex. Many Der Stürmer articles contained livid descriptions of sexual violence, right? And this is generally, he'll like have an article about some purported crime by like, a non-white French soldier in the Ruhr, or by, Jewish cabals or whatever. And the purpose is both to like get people angry against those groups of people, but also he's able to spend paragraphs talking about, lurid sexual assault stories. And that gets people to buy the newspaper because like it's kind of the most accessible pornography at the time.
Right.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it's messy, but like this is like a big part of its appeal. And in fact, one Nazi German writer who hated Streicher described Der Stürmer's appeal this way. He wants to keep his readers in constant suspense. But what do his readers want? Sensation and filth. Streicher gives that to them. He floods his readers with tastelessness. And who are his readers? Mostly adolescents who are still wet behind the ears. Thanks to Streicher's education, every lad is familiar with homosexuality and prostitution. One cannot blame Streicher for speaking about these matters. Every newspaper today does. The question is how one speaks of them. Streicher gives them great prominence. May not one be concerned when one sees the Stürmer not only in the hands of older students, but also in possession of elementary school students? And that's interesting because it gels with something Randall Beitwerk says in his biography of Stürmer, which is that in the early years of Der Stürmer, it was kind of an analog to Playboy magazine, right? That was a big part of its appeal to the kids who are going to get sort of pilled on early Nazi politics, is that like you start reading Der Stürmer because it's where you read about like sex, right?
Right.
Exactly. It's like titillating, and boys will they'll get copies without their parents knowing and they'll share them with each other. They'll like huddle around each other after school and like read these like lurid stories of sex and violence and whatnot. Cause like, it's kind of where you get them. And I had no idea this had gone on because the fascination with this sort of thing was so durable that a lot of Der Stürmer's early readers are Jewish Germans who would buy every issue and read it cover to cover. Streicher would actually jokingly thank them for supporting the paper in its early years. And while he's not a trustworthy source, Beitwerk notes that in 1925, a Jewish newspaper in Nuremberg complained, quote, "It is of great concern that the Stürmer is very frequently read, even in Jewish circles. We have found that large numbers of citizens of the Jewish faith buy the Stürmer and then take it home, concealed in a copy of, other newspapers. Thus, Jews directly support the Stürmer." So this is like a problem for them. And they're supporting it not because they're like secretly, into Nazi propaganda, but because like it's where you read sex stuff,
Right. Everyone likes smut.
Yep. That is the secret to Streicher's brilliance, is he understands like you wrap your racism in some smut, you'll get everybody's money,
Yeah.
Streicher was also innovative in another way. While most Nazi propagandists, including Hitler, saw themselves as like these central powerful figures guiding people towards a set of truths, Streicher was willing to have more of a give and take relationship with his audience. Now, part of this was pragmatic and based on something other Nazi newspaper owners would do, which is that it's expensive to hire writers to write articles, right? And like, photographs cost too much money to have a lot of those, but publishing reader letters is free, right? If you solicit shit from your readers and then publish that stuff to a mailbox or whatever, you can like get free content for your newspaper without paying for it. This is a thing that a lot of Nazi papers did. Where Streicher and Der Stürmer differed was that, again, they consider this sort of a two-way street. So when he starts to get a bunch of letters from readers who are like talking about a specific conspiracy theory they have of, so-and-so doing an evil thing, Streicher will use that and he'll just sort of like write out an investigation. And, he doesn't actually send anyone to investigate, but he'll take these, Alex Jones does this a lot, where you'll hear one episode, he'll get like a caller come in and make some sort of claim. And then the next episode, he's like, I've got sources that say this is going on. It's an easy way to make content, right? We'll do it.
The source is never actually a
Of course. Yeah. I found a fascinating analysis of the letters to Der Stürmer and like the different kind of ways they impacted content in the Journal of Modern Judaism by Dennis Showalter. And Showalter notes that Der Stürmer did sometimes publish just letters by outright cranks, like, people. One example he gives is there was this like guy who writes a letter to Streicher about how the Jews stole my business and they like forced me in an insane asylum, and it's clearly some dude who just like had a mental breakdown and blamed it all on the Jews for whatever reason. But
you went bankrupt. And then you went nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
That was your fault.
Yeah. But letters, these kind of letters, where it's just like some crank writing out a conspiracy theory, are kind of rare in terms of the kind of stuff he published. A much larger number of letters were requests for aid, either by people claiming, I got swindled by a Jewish merchant or something, or by people just claiming that they were suffering under the Weimar system, which was itself seen as Jewish. And publishing all of these letters allowed Streicher to make the case for Nazism in a way that was more personal than even a lot of Hitler's speeches. The pages of Der Stürmer became a place where Germans suffering from hard times could come to ask for aid. You could sort of direct support to people who were suffering through the news page, which kept people coming in, which built this sort of relationship with and again, it's very modern to like the way social media works, where you're like, oh, this guy is kind of politically on our side and he needs money for this. We'll do like a fundraiser for him, And this also serves as a way to like, we can talk about this bad thing that happened to him and how it's part of the evil that our enemies are doing, right?
Right.
And so Der Stürmer becomes this is how it becomes so central, a big part of how it becomes central to like the growing Nazi movement. And likewise, Streicher is able to use the kind of conversations he's having with his readers through these letters to forge Der Stürmer into a sort of weapon that really hadn't existed before. And to talk about that, I'm going to quote again from Showalter's piece. By far the largest category of letters in Der Stürmer's files and pages expressed grievances of one kind or another. This correspondence can be further subdivided under 4 general headings. The first can be best described as undifferentiated anti-Semitism, dislike of Jews as Jews. Here, simple hatred was less common than hostility based on profound ignorance. One rural correspondent described in detail the alleged Jewish practice of throwing stones on the graves of their dead while saying, "Greet Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for me, and when you see the little carpenter, throw a stone at his head." The daughter of another local Nazi was employed by a Gentile family as lady help until served a meal that included ground meat purchased from a Jewish butcher. Years of anti-Semitic horror stories about Jews deliberately polluting food, especially meat, and then selling it to Gentiles, had their effect. The girl refused her dinner, even when her employers mocked her Volkish prejudices and told her to eat or give notice. To her proud father, this principled stand deserved recognition in Der Stürmer, and Streicher agreed. Now that may just sound like undifferentiated Nazi propaganda, and it is, but also what's happening here is this girl, or her dad at least, is using Der Stürmer to say, hey, this family, this prominent family who hired my daughter, are doing business with a Jewish butcher. They're buying his products. And so not only does this spread this conspiracy that Jews are poisoning people, but it also shames this specific family and kind of directs threats against them, because Der Stürmer's readership are a bunch of asshole Nazis, right? So they hear, oh, this family's buying from a Jewish butcher. Let's go fuck with them, right? Let's, do some graffiti at their house. Let's like mess them up a little bit until they stop. And this is a really important turning point for Nazi propaganda, because one of the first steps on the road to genocide, anywhere that it exists, but in Nazi Germany in this particular instance, is the exclusion of targeted people from daily life, right? Once Hitler takes power, of course, they pass a bunch of laws to restrict Jewish employment, to get them out of public, right? So that Germans on a daily basis are not making contact with Jewish people and thus don't have relationships with them, won't stand up to stop the state from killing them in other ways. But during the Weimar period, Streicher is able to push Germans to cut tens of thousands, God knows how many, to cut off ties with their Jewish neighbors by using his paper this way. Readers start basically, whenever they see you've got like a German family, or a German business that's like not run by racists, right? So they're like, well, we'll sell products that are made by this Jewish owned company, or we'll have business with this Jewish butcher or whatever. You write about to Der Stürmer about them. And then Der Stürmer says, hey, this grocery store is selling meat from a Jewish butcher. Go picket it, go spray paint it, go break their windows, right? And a lot of businesses just start to pull back from their dealings with Jewish business people, with Jewish companies, with Jewish doctors and stuff. One thing, people will literally, exactly, because they don't want to be the subject of this shit. Like people will write in letters being like, my neighbor goes to a Jewish doctor, and then that guy will get like fucking egged in the street or like beat up by the SA or something. And it pushes people, huge numbers of people who are kind of centrists or even kind of progressive, to cut off ties with their Jewish neighbors in a lot of cases because it's so dangerous to do so. It's disastrous to your business. You can wind up getting very badly hurt as a result of it. He is using mass media to direct harassment campaigns in order to separate German Jews from other Germans. And it works extremely well. Der Stürmer is a potent weapon, and it's a kind of weapon hadn't really existed before in this form because like mass media is sort of getting born in this period of time. So yeah, that's good.
Sets off a real chain reaction, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, variants of this tactic are used all around today, right?
Yeah.
It works really well. It's this kind of, like when we talk about like the negative things about social media and how it can like direct harassment campaigns against people who go viral for whatever reason, you know, this is an early gasp of that. You know, it's more directed. It's less of kind of a consequence. It's not a consequence of an algorithm or anything, but it is this understanding of like, well, you could just like lie to piss off a bunch of people at a specific random person, and that will change their behavior in a way that might benefit me politically.
It's a kind of algorithm, right? I mean, it's not a programmed one that's programmed by, on computers, but it's like a human algorithm. If we can upset this one, then these lot will be scared to come here, and as a result, it will exclude one group from something else. It's very much like that now, but just obviously, like you said, via social media, where
he basically, I mean, he's built a kind of gun here, and he's going to leave it on the table when he gets hung at Nuremberg. But everybody can pick that gun up today, right? Like it's easy to find. So the Stürmer becomes a potent weapon. You get these lurid stories of violence and sex that draws in readers, especially young people, you know, you don't have as much sort of impulse control. So when these letters come out saying this family or this business is doing business with the Jews, they're maybe more likely to go fuck shit up, go break stuff, you know? It works well, and circulation increases during the period, this like late 20s period, from the tens of thousands to the hundreds of thousands, and this makes Julius a very wealthy man. As the years go on, the Nazis draw ever closer to power, and Streicher, he's generally recognized as like he's not a particularly bright guy in most things, you know, he's not like a very academic person, he's not a guy, you know, as a teacher, he wasn't very successful. But he's not just, he has like a degree of kind of like gut instinct as a propagandist, but he also pays attention to what works and doesn't. And over time, he starts to lay out a basis, the basis for a theory on how to properly deploy propaganda. And a Nazi historian who worked with him in the 30s describes Streicher's style this way. Since he wanted to capture the masses, he had to write it in a way that the masses could understand, in a style that was simple and easy to comprehend. He had recognized that the way to achieve the greatest effect on an audience was through simple sentences. Writing had to adopt the style of speaking if it were to have a similar effect. Streicher wrote in the Stürmer the way that he talked. The worker who came home at night from the factory was neither willing nor able to read intellectual treatises. He was, however, willing to read what interested him and what he could understand. Streicher therefore took the content from daily life and the style from speech. He thus gave the Stürmer its style, a style which many intellectuals could not understand, but which fundamentally was nothing but the product of his own experience gained over the years. And it's one of the things that's compelling to me about this is that obviously, like, you know, liberal and leftist intellectuals hate Streicher and attack him and often kind of don't understand why what he does works. But also Nazi intellectuals hate him because they think he's gross, he's boorish. His kind of anti-Semitism is really low class, whereas theirs, they feel, is very intellectual. Hitler, a big part of what Hitler does is he defends Streicher from the intellectuals in the Nazi party who hate him by being like, you guys don't get it. This dude has a fucking like hotline to like angrying up the blood of sort of like working class Germans. He gets it. He gets how to talk to them, and you people don't with your like fancy ass weird books about Nazi race magic, you know, like that's not
exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And I mean, I hate to say it, like Hitler was clever in that regard. Like he understood that. Yeah. But the irony is that Streicher's version of anti-Semitism is way more honest. It's awful, but it's way more honest because the intellectuals are as disgusting as Streicher. He's just saying it without the window dressing, you know?
Yeah, I'm not making like a moral difference between these guys for sure. But you're right.
No, I'm just saying like it's ironic that they would look down on Streicher when they're the exact same people.
Yeah, obviously, like he'll lie about crimes and stuff that he claims people committed, but when it comes to the meaning of his hate, he's very honest.
Yeah.
So Streicher's sentences, when he writes them in the Der Stürmer, are short. He keeps, he's very focused and to the point. He uses simple words. When he makes a report, and a big thing for him is when he makes a point, he repeats it over and over again for months or even years. Each issue, there's never any new arguments, right? Every argument you're going to get from Streicher is laid out in the first, issue of Der Stürmer, but every issue brings more pieces of evidence to support these arguments, right? And the central argument is that the Jews are a threat to German life. The line that he uses over and over again is the Jews are our misfortune, right? Which becomes one of the most iconic pieces of anti-Semitic Nazi propaganda, right? Yeah. In the mid-1920s, Streicher adds cartoons to Der Stürmer. He had become, this is another area in which he's a trailblazer, because he's become a fan over the period of making this of a racist cartoonist named Philipp Ruprecht, who wrote racist cartoons under the pseudonym Phipps. Yeah. And Streicher is like the first Nazi dude to like realize like, hey, you know what everyone loves is a cartoon. This is a great way to spread our propaganda. Phipps is interesting because he was initially just like a cartoonist who happened to be a racist. And so he gets hired by a social democratic paper to show up at a Streicher speech and like draw a caricature of Streicher, right, for this newspaper that doesn't like him. But Phipps kind of falls in love with Streicher and instead draws caricatures of that mayor I talked about, Lupa, and a prominent Jewish citizen who's got like beef with Streicher. And he instead of like doing the thing he'd been paid to, he goes to Streicher and he's like, hey man, I got paid to draw you, but instead I did these caricatures of these guys you hate. Will you publish them in Der Stürmer? Streicher does. And over the next 8 years, Phipps's anti-Semitic caricatures became the standard German visual shorthand for like identifying a public figure as Jewish. Michael D. Bullmash, whose family collection of Holocaust-related propaganda is hosted by Kenyon University, describes the impact of Phipps's drawings this way. These grotesque, often pornographic cartoons of Jewish stereotypes accompanied the propaganda Streicher disseminated, saturating the consciousness of Germans during the Third Reich and contributing to the capacity of many Germans to accept the Nazi program. These drawings often ended with the statement, "The Jew is our misfortune, and without a solution to the Jewish question, there is no salvation for mankind." Now, I'm going to have Sophie show you one of these cartoons, and we're not going to post any of this shit on the internet because, by God, there's enough of it, but like, what's going on in this cartoon you're looking at, it shows like a Jewish butcher with his wife behind him. They are both drawn uncharitably, and he is putting rats in an organ grinder in order to make meat to sell to Christians, right? Specifically, sort of conspiracy theories against Jewish butchers are a big part of the thing that Streicher is pushing because it makes people feel like they're personally threatened. It's a way to kind of force them out of society. So, I don't know. It's you can see sort of like the visual shorthand that he's developing here.
It's really like the archetypal like anti-Semitic style, if you like. Yeah.
All of the modern sort of racist caricatures in this vein are descendants of Phipps's drawings.
Yeah.
Pretty common.
Everybody wants the hidden knowledge, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. But the only way to get hidden knowledge, Jake?
Buying something.
That's right. That's right. Want. Yeah, exactly. When you purchase something that you don't want, it creates a Gnostic info path in which, the demiurge will beam a secret truth into your head because you've subscribed to Blue Apron's meal box plan.
Everyone's saying it.
Everyone's saying it.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it That's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Kids, pets, life, your sofa sees it all. But with a washable sofa, stains don't stand a chance. All of our sofa collections come with fully machine washable covers and cushions, making cleanup effortless. Liquid and stain-resistant fabrics provide extra protection against everyday messes. Plus, with modular designs, you can rearrange your sofa however you like. Perfect for growing families and changing spaces. Starting at just $699, it's time to upgrade to a stress-free, mess-proof sofa. Visit washablesofas.com today and save. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
We're back here. So good stuff here. By 1933, Der Stürmer is among the most popular newspapers in Germany. There's more than 500,000 sales each month. You know, they're doing great. Hitler's in power. And he holds a big celebration rally in Nuremberg, which is against Streicher's city, right? That's where the base of his power has always been. The early years of political legitimacy, you know, because the 30s before Hitler kind of is made chancellor, the early 30s is when they're starting to get into the Reichstag and whatnot. This has been good for not just Streicher, but other Nazi bigwigs. And they'd started to get both rich and like literally physically overweight, right? Because they're not fighting in the streets so much. They've all gotten older and now they have money for like nice food and alcohol. And I bring this up because you look at like iconic footage of Nazi rallies. Have you noticed that a lot of them are at night, right? These big torchlit rallies. I had always assumed that like that was just because, torches are like impressive visually. Like it makes it look kind of like more serious and whatnot. But the reason why this first big Nuremberg rally is done like in torchlit style is because Hitler's like angry at the fact that all of his old fighters have gotten fat and he doesn't want their bellies to show. So he's like, we gotta do this at night so nobody sees. We don't want him to look at Hermann Goering.
That's fucking hilarious.
It's kind of funny if you can, not think about what comes later a little bit. But yeah. So while most of the old fighters straight away took offices in Germany and set to work dismantling Weimar, Streicher remains at his paper, right? He doesn't basically all of the other guys who had been that tight with Hitler for that long get jobs in the government. Even if that job, they're not really doing anything. It's just sort of like, well, now you can get money and like take bribes and stuff. They get gigs in the state. Streicher doesn't do that. And I think it's probably because Hitler and everyone knows like, I know you like this guy, we'll take care of him, but like he can't work in the government. Like he's just not that kind of person. He's not able to function within a bureaucracy, He's a useful propagandist, but he's just too thorny to like function in a system like that. So they give him kind of this sort of like the prize that they give him that allows him to exist outside of the state apparatus is he's made Gauleiter for Franconia, which is the region that Nuremberg is in. And Gauleiter is a party position, so it's not part of the government, it's part of the Nazi party. And it's effectively like the head of a state party, right? Like you think about
Gauleiter.
Gauleiter.
What the fuck is wrong with Germans, man?
I know, it's nonsense language. And hey, I don't feel any better about France. We're coming for you next when we do the Napoleon episodes.
They've already surrendered.
So Gauleiter is like, yeah, it's you think about like in the United States, you've got like the Republican Party of Texas or the Democratic Party of Wyoming or whatever. They're going to have like a person who is running the party for that state. That's what the Gauleiter is. But because the Nazis have taken control of the state and are sort of in the process, 33, 34, 35, of like eating the state apparatus, being the head of the party for Franconia puts him in functional control over the government of the region, but he's not actually responsible for anything. So he can step in anywhere. He could tell the mayor what to do. He could tell the governor what to do. He can force his will anywhere in Franconia he wants, but he also doesn't have to do anything. So he's not like managing the sewers, but if there's a way for him to like get money out of like the sewers, like he could do that, It's kind of a perfect position for a gangster type dude to be in, right? Because you don't actually have to accomplish anything for people, but you can take advantage whenever it sort of occurs to you how you can do that. Right. It's a sweet gig. But as Bitework like explains,
kind of.
Yeah, exactly. But as his biographer Bitework explains, even this sweetheart gig is not something that Julius is well suited to handle. Just as he had been a poor soldier off the battlefield and a good one on it, he was better at fighting for political power than he was at using it. Indeed, the almost absolute power of a Gauleiter of the Third Reich exacerbated the flaws in his personality. He could not tolerate the orders of others, nor would he tolerate disobedience on the path of his subordinates. And Randall goes on to cite the analysis of a historian named Edward Preston, which I find interesting, if slightly questionable in phrasing. Probably more so than any of his peers, Streicher combined the elements of a dictator who would brook no opposition with those of the anarchist, the lover of chaos, who would accept no orders from superiors. This inability to fit into an organization, even his own, was his greatest weakness as Gauleiter. His lack of control made him enemies above, such as Goering and Himmler, who drove honorable men out of his organization below, leaving miserable toadies who had to crawl at his feet. There was constant turmoil in Franconia because there was constant turmoil in Streicher. So he's given this gig, which is like his reward for being loyal, but he's like bad, and he's fucking up. He's not just bad at it, but he's like fucking up the ability of the government to function. And this is a pretty crucial period for the Nazis, really, especially 33 to like 36 or so. It's not guaranteed that they're going to hold on to absolute power. The military doesn't really like them. They're in the process of replacing the police, right? There's still a chance that they could get like pushed out at this stage. So they don't want a guy like Streicher just like fucking around in the local government and being incompetent. It's like bad for them,
Yeah, they don't want a live wire at the time of everyone needing to play ball.
Exactly. This is like a really critical period, and it's recognized that he's a very reliable propagandist. He's not reliable here. So, the big reason why he gets into trouble then is not that like he's, a gangster, because they all are. It's that he's bad at being a gangster. He after he chases his nemesis, the mayor, out of the job, he replaces him with a toady, like a guy who's supposed to, suck up to him, but like that guy isn't very good at his job and also doesn't work with Streicher well because basically no one does. And the police chiefs that Himmler appoints in Franconia, they also hate Streicher because he's like super corrupt and is constantly breaking even like the minimal laws they're trying to enforce. So over and over again, Streicher will get, in trouble with somebody for like fucking up something critical in the state, and Nazi functionaries will write complaints to Hitler, and Hitler will intervene again and again. This happens a bunch in the mid-30s. Like Nazis trying to force Streicher out as Gauleiter, and Hitler being like, nah, man, he's my boy. Like, I know he's bad at this, but like, fuck you, he's my guy. And again, while this is going on, Nuremberg is a big city for Hitler. He visits there regularly. He doesn't like to see Streicher. There's like a bunch of cases where he'll show up in Nuremberg for an event and he'll kind of like have like an advance team go just to like warn him where Streicher is so he doesn't have to like hang out with him. Like
that is so funny.
Yeah, doesn't
don't
like
let
him.
That dickhead see me.
Yeah, don't let that dickhead see me. But also it's known, this is not just something that like was propaganda. People who knew and spent time around Hitler said that like Der Stürmer is the only thing Hitler reads cover to cover. Like every issue, this guy's reading it, So when we look at Streicher living under Nazi control, again, he's not this guy of kind of like broad-ranging talent. His talent is extremely focused on being a propagandist. But, you know, outside of that, he's kind of a failure in every other aspect of life. The early years of the Reich are then largely about score settling for Julius. In 1934, after the Night of Long Knives, a Nuremberg school teacher was heard in a cafe saying that Streicher should have been among the victims. When word got back to Julius, someone reports this teacher. He has the man arrested, and then he shows up in this teacher's cell with 2 other Nazis armed with whips, and they beat this guy half to death with them. As they leave the cell, Julius is heard to say, "I needed that. Now I feel released." Like, you know, and I think this is like, he's a street fighter. He's an old soldier. Like, I'm going to use part of what he is using his power on now that he is in political power is to like go beat the shit out of people whenever he wants to like deal with his stress. Yeah. Cause he's a big bully too. Maybe we have glossed over that, but yeah.
Yeah. I think that's like at the center of a lot of these ideologies is like just suppressed bullies or bullies in a position where, you know, they can't do it for a bit or whatever.
Yeah. It's just like, obviously you think about like, who wants to be a Nazi? Well, assholes, right? Like,
yeah. Of course, like the way you're living, so I want to crush you. Like,
exactly.
Like, fuck off, man.
Yeah, like we shouldn't be surprised that Julius Streicher uses his power to like beat whoever he wants with a fucking whip. That's not obviously like Heinrich Himmler or whatever isn't going to like go after him for whipping some random teacher. But where Streicher causes problems is one of the first things he does when the Nazis take power is he helps to organize an anti-Jewish boycott through his paper, which like is really successful. And it's actually kind of a mixed bag, but it's successful in making Nuremberg seen as the center of Nazi racial jurisprudence. Because Streicher is the guy who's writing all of these theories out. Now that they're sort of in power, he doesn't need to spread conspiracies about the Jews as much as he needs to make specific suggestions for how German law should deal with them. And this feeds into the fact that in September of 1935, at a Nuremberg rally, Hitler announces a new set of laws restricting the behavior of Jewish Germans, known as the Nuremberg Laws. Among other things, these legally ban sexual relations between German Jews and German non-Jews. Now, Streicher was not a part of writing these laws. Anything you ever read about the Holocaust, any documentary about the Holocaust will talk about the Nuremberg laws. They are extremely important in the advancing sort of assembly of the apparatus that becomes the Holocaust. Streicher gets credit for these laws. He has no role in them, actually. Because again, you're not going to bring in this dude to help you write laws. But because he was kind of the most known anti-Semite in the Nazi party, and because Nuremberg is his city, he gets credit for this thing that he doesn't actually really make. I mean, obviously he does support them. But he also, part of why he's not going to get to write these laws that he gets credit for is that these laws are written by the Nazi intellectuals that we talked about, who don't believe the exact same things that he does. Among other things, Streicher believes that Streicher has these weird mishmash of different sort of conspiratorial or different sort of historical, almost some kind of magical beliefs about the Jews, and where they came from, and all of this weird stuff that kind of reaches back to Ariosophy and stuff like that. Helena Blavatsky kind of shit. We talk about all this stuff, and some of that is common among the Nazi intelligentsia, but Streicher's version of it is considered kind of gutter. And so it's interesting. He gets kind of the last laugh here because these guys who hate him because they consider him low class are the ones who write the Nuremberg laws, but Streicher kind of gets credit for it. And in fact, after Hitler announces the Nuremberg laws, during his speech, there are chants of Hail Streicher that break out in the crowd because so many people give him credit for this stuff. Interesting side note. Under the new,
a good job at kind of planting this seed without actually doing the thing.
Such a good job that he gets credit for it over these people who are pretty pissed that he's the one who gets credit for their racism. Yeah.
Imagine being pissed about that.
Yeah.
We're the better racists.
No, he's not being racist, right?
Yeah.
Under the new Third Reich, Der Stürmer expanded its oeuvre into publishing children's books, like the 1936 text, "Trust no fox on the green meadow and no Jew on his oath." Not as good a title as like, I don't know, Hop on Pop. But yeah, that's
not as good as Anti-Semitism Daily.
no, the anti-Semitic letters. Yeah. This book is written by Elvira Bauer, who is an 18-year-old art student and kindergarten teacher, and is illustrated by Phipps. Kenyon University writes, children as young as 6 would be propagandized to recognize the Jew as distinct from the Aryan German, as crafty and exploitative, untrustworthy, greedy, money-hoarding, physically repulsive, and sexually predatory. The school child would be indoctrinated with old anti-Semitic tropes and canards from an early age. German youth would learn not only to recognize these repulsive descriptions of Jews, but as well the importance of standing together as a nation to remove the Jew as a threat. Der Stürmer constantly reminded Germans that the Jews are our misfortune, and Jewry and its malignant influence had to be destroyed. So, again, through all the issues, the first 5 years of Nazi power are broadly speaking a good time for him. But in 1938, he steps out of line again. And the cause here is Kristallnacht happens, right? So you get this big night of rioting across Germany. Bunch of synagogues are burnt down. Bunch of Jewish businesses are like robbed.
The windows.
Yeah, breaking the window. It's the night of broken glass, right?
Yeah.
And Streicher uses this as an excuse, kind of in the wake of this, to buy up millions of dollars of Jewish property at forced sale prices, where it's basically like, hey, seeing what's happening to all these other Jewish-owned businesses, your shop can either get burnt down or you can sell it to me at like 5% of its actual value, right? Now, the Nazis don't have an issue with this as a thing. In fact, this is what they are all doing. But the problem is that Streicher is not going within the party apparatus. He's just doing this at wherever he thinks there's a profit. And Hermann Goering is the guy who's supposed to be doing all this, like buying all these businesses for nothing. So when Streicher does this, he kind of steps on Goering's toes. And so the two men wind up in conflict over this. And that conflict gets stoked by some of Streicher's other enemies within the Nazi party apparatus. One of these guys is the local police president who like goes to Goering and is like, hey man, look, you and I are buds. I just want to let you know, Streicher's telling people your dick doesn't work. Like he's saying that like your wife got artificially inseminated because like you can't come anymore. I just want you to know, bro, like I'm not saying that. Jules is saying that, you know?
Jesus,
it is so petty, right? He's like, yeah, got him. So this pisses off Hermann Goering, who launches a commission. Yeah, of course. Who launches a commission to investigate Streicher, and of course finds a lot of examples of outrageous corruption. And obviously, Hermann Goering is Hermann Goering. I don't trust that this was a good investigation, but Streicher is outrageously corrupt, so it's probably not hard. And like, it's so fucked up. Like one of the things they're doing, there's like a fucking paparazzi element to this, where like Streicher is constantly cheating on his wife, right? He's got all these mistresses. He's visiting prostitutes. So a big part of what they're doing is they're just like having photographers ambush him while he's like naked fucking people and like take photos and stuff of him. Yeah, that's like a bunch of this.
Paparazzi, but like right there.
So Goering's investigation comes up with both a bunch of photos of Streicher morally sort of being, and most of the Nazis are like this, right? Hermann Goering is like this, right? Like he is a decadent motherfucker, but Hitler's actually not. Hitler's like weird and repressed and kind of grossed out by this sort of behavior.
Yeah.
So even though they're all doing it, if you can make the case to Hitler that like this guy's a degenerate, Hitler will get kind of pissed off as a result of that. So that's like the hope. That's why they're going after him this way. So this forces a wider investigation, Goering's investigation. And so it now becomes a matter for the Nazi courts. And the Nazi courts call up Streicher's assistant, a guy named Hans Koenig, to testify against him. And it does say, as much of an asshole as Streicher is to most people he works with, Koenig is as loyal as you can be, because when he gets subpoenaed, basically, he goes to Streicher and he's like, they're going to question me on the stand about you. And Streicher's like, you should kill yourself, bro. It's the only way to get out of this. And Koenig does it. Koenig kills himself to protect Streicher.
What?
Yeah, he's like, yes, sir. Taking the order. Yeah.
I guess
this is how I'm doing it. Yeah.
What, man? What the fuck was going on in Germany, man?
Man, you got a note with all of this happening that like you can buy heroin over the counter. There's like methamphetamine everywhere. Right, maybe that also everyone's drinking I don't know. Maybe that plays a role. Yeah. All the head injuries from the war. Who knows? You know?
It's a really wild time though.
It's fucking nuts. Yeah.
Like obviously everything else that happened after was wild and fucked up and crazy, but it really didn't spring from nothing.
No, it's quite a period, and so fucking Koenig offs himself, which winds up protecting Streicher. Now the commission still finishes its investigation on him, and what they uncovered provides us with a pretty interesting lens into the early ground reality of Nazi corruption. And I'm going to quote from the book Julius Streicher here. The commission even investigated Streicher's sexual life, greatly aided by the cooperation of a nervous mistress. Announcing that no proper man would wear a wedding ring, Streicher had collected those of his underlings to melt down into a jewelry box for his mistress, Annie Seitz, who also received a regular salary for very limited duties from Streicher's one of his newspapers. Other mistresses, too, received paychecks from surprising sources. A country house with a well-equipped bedroom had been built for Streicher's affairs. Further cases of the beatings of political opponents were uncovered, as were Streicher's detailed examinations of the sex lives of arrested juvenile delinquents and his boasts in the presence of young people of sexual prowess. So he's doing shit like he's having all the people who work with him given his wedding rings so he can like melt them down to give a present to his mistress. He's like, whenever juvenile delinquents are arrested, he's like showing up to like sexually harass and sometimes assault them. Like
so fucking weird.
He's real weird piece of shit. So again, a lot of Nazis are doing stuff like this. Streicher's just really bad at covering it up. But still, Hitler fights back against these attempts from the other Nazis to use this as a justification to remove him from power. And he continues to back Streicher for another year until the German invasion of Poland. And what finally gets Julius in trouble with Hitler is really dumb. Basically, the invasion of Poland, again, we forget this because of everything now, is kind of unpopular, even in Germany at the time, right? Like, it's kind of a dicey move. It's a gamble. Hitler's a gambler. It's a gamble to invade Poland because people aren't fully on board with doing another world war at this stage. While he's trying to build support for Hitler's invasion of Poland, Streicher kind of goes off a little bit on a limb, and he makes some comments critiquing the leadership of the Wehrmacht, which Hitler absolutely needs the army's support. And so when Streicher fucks up and makes the army angry, Hitler has to ban Streicher from giving public speeches in order to keep the army on his side. This sort of forces another investigation against Streicher, which reveals a bunch more corruption. And in 1940, Hitler finally agrees to remove Julius from his official position as Gauleiter. Sort of. Hitler can't have him in control anymore, but he doesn't want to like publicly insult him. So in public, Streicher is still named the Gauleiter, but he is privately, another person is picked to do the job, and Streicher is banned from leaving his home, right? He's not allowed to go to Nuremberg anymore. He's basically on like house arrest, but he's still allowed to publish Der Stürmer. It's this weird back and forth Hitler has with him where he's like, you are under house arrest. I will prosecute you if you go to Nuremberg, but also while the war is going on, I'm going to send you like precious supplies of fuel and paper in order to keep making Der Stürmer.
Right. He just needs that, but he doesn't need the lunatic behind it. I'm certainly not suggesting here what I'm going to say that Trump is like Hitler or anything like that. But it's in a way, it reminds me slightly of like Bannon and Trump. Like, we need this rabble rouser. And then it was like, oh, for fuck's sake, he's going too far. What the fuck can we do with him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like, they're both authoritarian guys. Like, obviously, Trump hasn't killed tens of millions of people. Real big difference there. But there's similar personality things, right? And there's, including, as you, I think, pretty astutely noted, Bannon is super talented propagandist, was terrible at being involved in politics directly, right? Exactly, and immediately got in. These kind of guys come up and down in history, you know, like, that's just the way it goes. Oddly enough, firing Streicher in this way is one of the few things Adolf Hitler ever felt guilty about. Like, this kind of gnaws at his heart. There's like a quote from him during a private dinner in 1942 where he's like lamenting, "This Streicher affair is a tragedy. Streicher is irreplaceable. There's no question of his coming back, but I must do him justice. If one day I write my memoirs, I shall have to recognize that this man fought like a buffalo in our cause. I can't help thinking that, in comparison with so many services, the reasons for Streicher's dismissal are really very slender." Like, it's so... As a guy, he's a real piece of shit. I mean, he's literally Hitler, but he's got this he's morally harmed by the fact that he feels like he's not doing right by Streicher. Don't so strange.
A lot about evil, that someone can feel bad about firing this fucking lunatic that he didn't even like, and then not feel bad about literally massacring 6 million people.
Yeah, anything else.
What a weird thing.
It is so, because I think it is that for all of his numerous flaws, as other Nazis saw them, Streicher was ride or die for Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And someone with an ego like Hitler's, that means so much.
That means everything to him. Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's important in anyone's life, but for someone like that, when they're doing these evil shit, you need that person. Yeah.
Yeah. You need that fucking dude who Streicher had this guy who was willing to kill himself for him. I think Streicher would have done that for Hitler. He was able to be kind of selfless when it came to backing Hitler. This is the only place he was able to do that in his life, because he's otherwise a real piece of shit. But he had that to him. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's so things like that are just so fascinating to me. Like the psyche of just pure evil, and the way it's compartmentalized within these people's heads. It's fascinating.
There's a lot there just about the humanity, and I don't mean this in we need to be sympathetic toward Adolf Hitler. No, but the humanity of him, in that he is a man who is capable of having something gnaw at his conscience, but also the thing that gnaws at his conscience is that he wasn't nice enough to a giant piece of shit.
Right. It's I don't even know how you work it out.
There's nothing to. It's just a thing. I think it's if you actually
is, right.
If you actually want to understand these people, not just as historical figures, but as people. This is a thing. It's an interesting aspect of them,
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you don't understand where this is coming from, it will happen again.
Yeah, exactly. And it also these people, we often say oh, this person's a monster, right? And you use it to kind of treat them like a force of almost like magic, like an ill wind. And it's no, Hitler was a person. Streicher was a person. They had, part of what you have to understand here that I'm sure is an aspect of how they both feel the way they do is this feeling of trench loyalty to a fellow soldier,
Yes.
And anyway. So World War II, not great for the Der Stürmer as a profitable organization. For one thing, paper, fuel, all gets harder to find. It's more difficult to publish newsletters. Most people in this period are actually going to be reading Der Stürmer, not by buying a copy, but because in every town in Germany, they'll put up these big kind of ground level billboard type things where every new issue will be put under glass or something so you can see each page and presented that way. So people in town can just walk up to it to read that week's issue of Der Stürmer. That's how a lot of it gets handed out. Because
for free.
Yeah, for free, because there's shortages.
Having it kind of.
Yeah. Because you can't make as many paper copies, for one thing, right? It's just not possible with the reality of the war. So obviously Der Stürmer becomes less profitable. It also, people are less interested in it during World War II. Streicher had built his base of readers through sexual titillation and blood and guts and fear-mongering about the Jews. That's the core of it, right? Mm-hmm. And by the time World War II starts, there are not Jews publicly in German society, right? That's the Holocaust, And so there's nothing for him to fear-monger about, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to do the thing that you were doing? They've
need a new enemy.
Yeah, right? They've been removed, right? And he's not ever able to really figure that out. So Der Stürmer stays working during the World War II, but it kind of it's public interest in it sort of falls through the floor. And in early 1945, Julius requests permission from Hitler to basically, I want to, everything's falling apart. Please let me go to the front and fight. And Hitler gives him permission. But Streicher doesn't wind up doing that. Instead, he's just married his secretary, after his wife died, who he'd been cheating with on his wife for a long time. And right before the war ends, they flee to Berchtesgaden, which is where Hitler had it's this nice little mountain town where Hitler had his summer home. And they kind of just move there with the plan of writing it out as long as they can and then killing themselves. So while they're in hiding, American GIs, capture Nuremberg and whatnot, and they find Streicher's house. And as they're going, this is a thing, all of these Nazis, right? Hermann Goering's big palace gets gone through by soldiers. So does Hitler's place in Berchtesgaden. They find all of the different art these guys had collected. And when it comes to Streicher, these other big Nazis, they had stolen very valuable works of art. Inside Streicher's home, they find what might have been the largest stockpile of pornography in the world at the time.
Of course. Are you surprised?
No. Just rooms of porn. And what he'd done is for years as Gauleiter, Streicher had collected using the police every piece of pornography produced in the city that he could get his hands on. He claimed, I'm building a library to study the Jewish plot to destroy Aryan masculinity. That's why I need more porn than any man has ever had. Yeah.
Right. 1 minute there, I'm just in the office studying.
Yeah, I'm studying.
I'm going to study so hard tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fucking hell. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's funny to think of, but at the same time, it's not at all surprising from this guy, right?
No, not at all. So on May 23rd, 1945, the Americans are in Berchtesgaden. There's they're looking for all of these Nazi bigwigs, right? And Streicher is on the list. He's gone missing. So officers are getting handed these lists being be on the lookout for this dude. We want to talk to this Nazi. And there's this American Jewish major, right? He's a Jewish American who's an army major. His last name is Plitt. And he's walking around town one day in Berchtesgaden and he sees Streicher and his mistress. And Plitt doesn't think that he's Streicher, and instead is just hey man, you look a lot like this escaped Nazi. Has anyone ever told you that? Right? He's just being kind of casual about it.
Yeah.
But he does it in German, and he's not great at speaking German, right? Because he's an American. And so Streicher, because the dude's German is broken, thinks this guy is saying, you are the escaped Nazi Julius Streicher, and hands himself in, right? He's you got me. And then the major's wait, really? For real?
Why?
Are you actually that guy? Yeah. So, the language barrier captured us at least one Nazi. There you go.
Right.
Now, Streicher gets arrested. If you go and read, and if you're Googling a lot of stories about Streicher, you will wind up on a bunch of Nazi websites because they are livid that he gets, they call it torture, which I guess it's not torture. Basically what happens is when he gets arrested, this is a thing that happens to a number of arrested Nazis. A couple of Jewish soldiers and black soldiers just beat the shit out of him, right? Just absolutely.
Too bad. Too fucking bad.
Too fucking, but right, I'm not worried about this. This is not, this doesn't tweak my heart. But Nazis get really angry about the fact that the Allies tortured this guy, where it's I don't know, man. One thing that we know happens is that U.S. troops start circulating a picture of him after he got the hell beaten out of him that has a sign that says Julius Streicher, King of Jews. Yeah. So,
he's had his shit kicked in.
Yeah. He gets more of his comeuppance than most Nazis, right? So he goes on, he's captured. There's a year or so where he's in custody, and everyone's trying to figure out how to do the Nuremberg trials, because that's a whole process. And while he's being interrogated, while this court trial is going on, Streicher, he kind of he has a couple of weird periods. There's one period of time where he starts, because this is, if you remember, your history, right after World War II, a number of these Jewish militias that had existed in Palestine start fighting, more openly, right? And he hears about this, And he starts making speeches about how now, if you'll let me go, I'll go to Palestine to fight on behalf of these Jewish militias, because unlike the Germans, they're willing to fight for their homeland or whatever, right? It's very weird. Fuck? Like, I think he's just like fucking with people, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's trolling, right? Like, that is the guy this is. Like, he knows this will get attention. He wants to troll people. He makes a claim at one point that, like, I met this Jewish American soldier who treated me well, and it proved to me that there's good Jews. But then he also writes like a final like big anti-Semitic rant that's his like political statement about how everything's the fault. He's just like trolling people, right? Like, we don't need to get into it.
And I mean,
the guy that he is.
In prison,
yeah,
he's gonna say that shit.
Yeah, exactly. So they have this big international military tribunal. Streicher and Goering are kind of like two of the bigger Nazis there. There's some like generals and whatnot. And the indictment of Streicher concludes that he was like not directly involved in the physical commission of the Holocaust, right? Not, or at least not in a way that's like similar to, the people who are running Auschwitz or whatever, right? But they note, and I think this is a really interesting and valuable thing that the Nuremberg trial does, that while he was not a part of the state and he was not organizing death camps, his propaganda was consciously preparing the way for genocide, right? That had been part of his goal, and that he was thus partly responsible for Nazi crimes against humanity. There's a line in here, basically like within sort of the kind of indictments against him. There's this sort of a line that, quote, "The effects of this man's crime, of the poison that he has poured into the minds of millions of young boys and girls, goes on, for he concentrated upon the youth and childhood of Germany. He leaves behind him a legacy of almost a whole people poisoned with hate, sadism, and murder, and perverted by him. That people remain a problem and perhaps a menace to the rest of civilization for generations to come." So that is the accurate conclusion of the Nuremberg Commission. He is sentenced to death.
Spot on. Spot on. I mean, in many ways, I think his legacy is a lot more dangerous than someone dealing out violence at the time. Not to say they're any,
absolutely,
they're scum as well, but you know what I mean? His legacy has definitely lasted.
Yeah. I mean, you think about like a couple of years ago in the US, we had the Tree of Life synagogue shooting, right? This guy, Robert Bowers, walks and shoots 11 people. You can find like quotes of him basically sharing evolutions of Streicher propaganda. There's a direct line between the two, right? Streicher's still killing people, Yeah,
exactly my point. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool that on October 16th, 1946, the United States had a mostly illiterate con man who pretended to be a skilled executioner hang Streicher on the gallows at Nuremberg and really fuck it up. It's a bad execution. This guy did not know what he was doing.
What a poetic end. Yeah, perfect.
He gets caught by a guy who has broken German and then gets killed by a guy who's, bad at hanging people.
Yeah. Right, it has like this Looney Tunes death after doing all this mad shit.
Yeah, the American people helping to punish the Nazis through incompetence. We didn't know what we were doing, but we got him in the end.
Luckily he felt like a lot of pain before death just from American incompetence, but it works.
God willing. All right, that's the story of Julius Streicher. Jake, how you feeling?
Yeah, it's very fascinating, man. I'm really, really interested in that. As particularly like I've read, the book about like the lead up to World War II, and I don't remember this guy. I'm sure it was in it. It was a long time ago, but it's really interesting, this kind of stuff, and it really sadly shows that it's not really going anywhere and hasn't really gone anywhere in some ways,
Yeah. And that's pretty cool. If you're interested in Julius Streicher, I'd really do recommend people the book Julius Streicher by Randall Bitwork. Really good book, really good historiography of this guy. Talks in much more detail about his propaganda. Jake, where can people find you?
So just hit me up any social media at Jake_Hanrahan. That's HANRAHAN. Or check out my platform, Popular Front. Just go, search, your best bet. We're shadow banned off of a load of stuff. We're censored heavily on everything but Twitter, ironically. So just search at popular.front and you'll find us.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So check out Popular Front, check out Sad Oligarch, and join Cooler Zone Media so you can get all of these wonderful shows. Well, not Popular Front ad-free, but Popular Front is ad-free normally. So all of your podcasts will be ad-free if you add that to your
I'll be honest, times are very hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to stay ad-free for much longer. We've done 5 years, but shit's going bad. But not bad in terms of the business, in terms of cost of living crisis, you know.
For sure.
No.
Yeah,
it's hard out there. So
we understand.
Yeah.
All right.
And that brings me back to Blue Apron.
God damn it.
Anyway, everybody,
fresh.
have a happy holiday. This isn't going to come out during a holiday, but the next time you have a holiday, remember me wishing you a happy one now.
Fucking weirdo.
And Christmas.
Yeah, and Christmas, for a few months from now.
Cool. Bye.
Behind the Bastards is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to a podcast, so you're doing something else too, like maybe scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving places you like without thinking you'll get them, because that's what house hunting has become. But Redfin isn't built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents, which means when you find a place you love, you've got a real shot at getting it. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
A BetterHelp ad. We get it. February is full of flowers, candy, and, of course, lots of talk about relationships. It can feel like everyone else has it all together in their love lives. But the truth is, we're all still figuring it out. Whether you're working on your marriage, navigating the dating apps, or prioritizing staying single, no matter where you are, you're right on time. Therapy can help you find your way and take some of the pressure off yourself so you can determine what you want, what feels heavy, and how you can feel lighter. Just a little bit of outside perspective from a professional can lead to new understanding and a lot of progress. So the next time you're feeling iffy about your love life, try therapy with BetterHelp and see where it takes you. And remember, you're right on time. Visit BetterHelp.com for 10% off. That's BetterHelp.com.
Life gets messy. Spills, stains, pet accidents, and kid chaos. But with Anabay, cleaning up is easy. Our sofas are fully machine washable, inside and out, so you never have to stress about messes again. Made with liquid and stain-resistant fabrics, that means fewer stains and more peace of mind. Designed for real life, our sofas feature changeable fabric covers, allowing you to refresh your style anytime. Need flexibility? Our modular design lets you rearrange your sofa effortlessly. Perfect for cozy apartments or spacious homes. Plus, they're earth-friendly and built to last. That's why over 200,000 happy customers have made the switch. Upgrade your space today. Sofas start at just $699. Visit washablesofas.com now and bring home a sofa made for life. That's washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.